Tim Burton's 1990 masterpiece, Edward Scissorhands, begins not with its titular character, but with the framing device of a grandmother telling a bedtime story to her granddaughter. This immediately establishes the film as a modern fairy tale, complete with a castle on a hill overlooking a pastel-colored suburbia. The visual contrast between Edward's dark, Gothic mansion and the uniformly cheerful neighborhood below creates the film's central tension. Burton, drawing from his own childhood feelings of isolation, crafts a world where creativity and individuality are literally kept at a distance from conformity. The opening sequence sets up the film's exploration of how society treats those who are different, while simultaneously questioning what normal really means in a world of manufactured happiness. Edward's introduction reveals him as a tragic figure of incomplete creation, a synthetic man with scissors for hands left unfinished by his inventor father. Johnny Depp's performance is a masterclass in physical acting, conveying profound emotion through minimal dialogue and expressive eyes. Edward's scissors, while dangerous and impractical, become symbols of both his artistic potential and his social limitations. He can create breathtaking topiary sculptures and elaborate ice carvings, yet cannot perform simple human tasks like holding hands. This duality reflects the artist's dilemma: creative gifts that simultaneously isolate them from ordinary life. Burton suggests that true artistry often comes at the cost of basic human connection. The suburban setting of the film functions as a satirical microcosm of American conformity. Each identical pastel house represents a different facet of middle-class life, from the religious neighbor to the sexually frustrated housewife. When Peg Boggs discovers Edward and brings him into this world, she introduces chaos into order. The neighbors initially embrace Edward as a novelty, a talented oddity who can trim their hedges and style their hair. This reflects society's tendency to value difference only when it serves practical purposes. Burton critiques how communities consume uniqueness as entertainment while remaining fundamentally unchanged by it. The suburbs' pastel colors mask a darker reality of gossip, jealousy, and judgment. Edward's relationship with Kim Boggs evolves from fear to fascination to genuine love, representing the film's emotional core. Winona Ryder's Kim begins as the typical popular girl, but gradually recognizes the beauty in Edward's difference. Their impossible romance they can never truly touch without injury becomes a metaphor for the barriers between people from different worlds. The iconic ice sculpture scene, where Edward creates snow for Kim to dance in, represents the transformative power of art and love. Yet even this magical moment is tainted by reality, as the neighborhood watches from below, unable to comprehend what they're witnessing. Burton suggests that true connection often exists outside societal understanding. The film's secondary characters represent various responses to otherness. Joyce, the predatory neighbor, sees Edward as a sexual conquest. Jim, Kim's boyfriend, represents aggressive masculinity, threatened by Edward's gentle nature. The religious fanatic sees Edward as demonic, while the police officer represents institutional misunderstanding. Each character projects their own fears and desires onto Edward, rarely seeing him as a complete person. This reflects how marginalized individuals are often reduced to symbols or threats by mainstream society. Burton shows how communities create monsters through their own prejudices and insecurities, then punish those monsters for existing. Edward becomes a blank canvas for suburban anxieties. Danny Elfman's score is integral to the film's emotional landscape, blending childlike wonder with Gothic melancholy. The main theme, with its music box quality, evokes both innocence and loss. Elfman's compositions mirror Edward's internal state, delicate, complex, and slightly off-kilter. The music transforms ordinary scenes into magical moments while underscoring the tragedy of Edward's existence. Particularly effective is how the score contrasts with the diegetic 1950s pop songs playing in the suburb, highlighting the cultural divide between Edward's world and the neighbors. The soundtrack becomes another character, guiding our emotional response and deepening the fairy tale atmosphere. The film's visual design creates a cohesive aesthetic universe that supports its themes. Burton and production designer Bo Welch blend German expressionism with 1950s Americana, creating a surreal landscape that feels both familiar and alien. Edward's castle laboratory, filled with intricate machinery and unfinished inventions, contrasts with the sterile, identical interiors of the suburban homes. The color palette shifts from monochromatic grays in the castle to oversaturated pastels in the neighborhood, visually representing different emotional states. Even Edward's leather costume, designed by Colleen Atwood, tells a story. It's both protective armor and a symbol of his manufactured nature, never quite fitting with the pastel world below. As the neighborhood turns against Edward, the film explores mob mentality and the fragility of acceptance. What begins as curiosity becomes exploitation, then fear, then outright hostility. The burglary sequence, where Edward is manipulated into participating in a crime, demonstrates how easily good intentions can be corrupted. When the neighbors chase Edward back to his castle with torches and pitchforks, Burton directly references Frankenstein, positioning Edward as another misunderstood creation hunted by those who don't understand him. The film suggests that society's tolerance for difference has limits, especially when that difference challenges established power structures or reveals uncomfortable truths about the community itself. The tragic ending solidifies Edward Scissorhands as a modern myth. Edward returns to his castle, forever separated from the world below, while Kim tells his story to future generations. This creates a circular narrative that elevates Edward from individual to legend. The final shots of ice sculptures and falling snow suggest that Edward's creativity continues even in isolation. Burton refuses a conventional happy ending, instead offering something more profound, the idea that some beings are too pure for this world, and that their legacy exists in the beauty they create. The film becomes a meditation on artistic legacy and how stories preserve what reality cannot accommodate. 30 years after its release, Edward Scissorhands remains remarkably relevant as a parable about otherness in an increasingly polarized world. The film speaks to anyone who has felt like an outsider: the artist, the artist, the LGBTQ, plus individual, the immigrant. Edward Scissors represent both the gifts and burdens of being different in a conformist society. Burton's masterpiece endures because it balances specific satire with universal themes, creating a character who transcends his particular circumstances to become an icon of gentle resistance. The film asks us to consider who we exclude from our communities and what beauty we miss when we demand that everyone fit the same mold.